Everyone, welcome to 2 Out the First. It's May the 14th, 2024. I'm Ryan Balaji. Thanks for being here. Been an interesting weekend of results from golf. Now we've got the PGA Championship. Got some drama on the front of the PGA Tour Policy Board. Yesterday, I was up in New Jersey for the media day for the ShopRite LPGA Classic. ShopRite's one of the longest running sponsors, if the longest running sponsor for the LPGA. Their event has raised something like $45 million for local charities over the years. And they had us out there at Seaview, which is run by Dolce Hotels. And they have two golf courses there. And the Bay course is the one in which they have the tournament. So it's an old Ross. It's really fun. It's just across the water from Atlantic City and Galloway Township. Had a great time playing a scramble. Nuked a couple drives. Made an eagle putt. Drove a green. It was a good day. We didn't win the scramble, the media scramble, but had a lovely, lovely time. And looking forward to checking out that tournament again in a few weeks' time. So that was where I was yesterday, coming home from that. Didn't get a chance to really have a wrap-up of the weekend. But then, as I'm coming home in traffic, find out that Jimmy Dunne has resigned from the PGA Tour Policy Board. And he did it yesterday, sent a letter to his fellow player directors. I believe Sports Illustrated was first with this. Michael Rosenberg, I think, has an in with Jimmy Dunne. He's been pretty well tuned into this story at times, and I think that's his source, right? I mean, sometimes you kind of give it away with who you report on and when you report on them, but there's nothing wrong with that. And Dunne sent this letter to the fellow directors, not just the player directors, but everybody on the PGA Tour Policy Board, and tried to spin his short time on the board as, effectively a year and a half on the board, as instrumental, right? He was one of the architects of the framework agreement between the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, and the Public Investment Fund, along with Ed Herlihy and Jay Monahan. And they architected that agreement in such a way that it would stop the lawsuits, right? They were dismissed with prejudice, so they couldn't be refiled. It opened the door for the PGA Tour to take on private investment, be that from the Saudis or other people. So his spin was, hey, look, I helped stop the lawsuits, and that's done now. No matter what happens with the Public Investment Fund, we have the Strategic Sports Group investment, and that's a good thing. So that's going to mean, billions of dollars ultimately into the PGA Tour's coffers as new investors. That could be he believes that's going to be nothing but a good thing for the tour. However, he has also been iced out of any negotiations with the Saudis since that agreement was announced last year. And for good reason, right? The players don't trust him. The players don't trust Ed Herlihy. Players don't trust Jay Monahan. Again, those three people negotiated in secret with the Saudis for multiple months to get to a deal that they thought was in the best interests of the PGA Tour. And ultimately, probably was. However, because they didn't tell anybody, because of the nature of it, they absolutely nerfed any trust that the players have in them. And so Jimmy Dunne was iced out from the beginning. And he hasn't been involved in the negotiations in a calendar year. And he said, hey, when I testified in front of the Senate, I believe that was July, he told the senators, I'm going to vote for whatever the players want. As an independent director on the board, I want the players to have the final say. So if that's what they agree to as player directors, I will agree with them and be their majority making vote at the time. Then, a month later, that didn't seem important anymore because Tiger Woods was added to the board in response to player upheaval, and that gave the players more board seats than independent directors for the first time. And that meant if the players could agree, if they could come to a concurrent, some kind of majority, right, or an absolute majority, they could all agree to each other. They could form the majority vote. They don't need the independent directors anymore. So Jimmy Dunne wasn't required to be the majority making vote if there was absolute agreement among the player directors about a vote to have a deal or not have a deal for that matter with the Saudis. And Jimmy Dunne said, hey, because I'm no longer needed to cast that vote, a tie-breaking vote or a majority-making vote, I don't need to be here. You don't want me in the negotiations. You don't need me for a vote. I'm done. And then went on to say that he has done everything he has done in hopes of trying to reunite men's professional golf and try to create a deal that he hopes will bring back fans and start kind of the path to healing for the PGA Tour or live golf, all that stuff. But that he encouraged the remaining, the people who are still on the board to work toward a deal and signed off from there. That's a pretty surprising thing in some sense, right? The guy who put together the deal that could make the deal isn't going to be there until the end. And sometimes that stuff happens in life, right? The person who makes the biggest first move isn't the one who sees it to the end. That doesn't always happen that way. And Jimmy Dunne's worth a lot of money. He's got a lot of things going on, I'm sure. He's got plenty of golf to play. There's really no reason for him to be on the board anymore. If they don't want him to negotiate, which is fine, I understand that completely. In some sense. We'll come back to that in a minute. If they don't want him to be on any of these special committees, if they don't want him or need him to be a majority-making vote, around once the players have consensus, it's done. Then, okay, why bother? And I think that's a little. What I don't know is if this is in response to the attempt by Cantlay, Spieth, and Tiger Woods to keep Rory back off from getting back on the board, right? They kind of made their power move. Hey, we're not going to put McIlroy back on the board, but then I assume Tiger made this move to have McIlroy on the transaction subcommittee that they created to negotiate directly with the Saudis. So maybe that's an end around on Cantlay or Spieth or both. Maybe I don't know, but that's my sense of this, that okay, Cantlay and Spieth and Woods didn't want McIlroy on the board seat. Tiger may have done that for shielding reasons because he couldn't get it from the others that were going to obstruct. So he decided, okay, we'll create these committees, and as a result of that, McIlroy will have his influence. Maybe that's how they just chose to do it. Tiger is choosing to do it. But maybe Dunne was like, hey, McIlroy should be on the board. I have no idea what those meetings are like, right? None of us really do. But given the tone of Dunne's letter, it sure sounds like he would have preferred and maybe would have stuck around if McIlroy was directly involved in the board. That's the way I'm kind of reading it. And so we don't know who's going to replace Jimmy Dunne on the board. That will get announced, right? We'll see what happens there, I suppose. Maybe the guy that's taken over as the chair of PGA Tour Enterprises board is going to take this spot. I'm just guessing. I don't have a source on that. But that's just trying to read the tea leaves. So Dunne's out. And I think the instant reaction is from the tone of Dunne's letter, because he explicitly says he is superfluous because there's been no significant progress made in a deal with the Saudis. So even if they needed his vote in the old structure, nothing's happened. And that kind of flies in the face. It does fly in the face of Jay Monahan saying last week at the Wells Fargo that there has been an escalation or a significant amount of progress made in the talks with the Saudis. As far as Jimmy Dunne's concerned, that's a big nope. There hasn't been much progress. And again, we're a year into this process, right? A year. In a couple of weeks, it'll be a year. And if there's no movement, why does Jimmy Dunne want to sit still? Like, he did his part. And I wonder if at the time he recognized, and he probably did very, very quickly once he was not involved in the negotiation phase from June on, that his achievement, if you want to call it that, if anything, was going to be the framework, and that he was going to have to kind of turn it over to whoever was going to take the board situation from there. He thought it might be McIlroy, maybe Woods, and then Cantlay really kind of won that battle with McIlroy. It was a huge pain in the neck because he was an obstructionist and remains an obstructionist. The deal, or whatever that deal is going to look like. And now, here we are. I think this is a mistake, right, to let Jimmy Dunne leave the board. But I also understand probably the players didn't trust him. And they need someone they can trust. Because in this process, you have a bunch of guys with undergraduate degrees at best on the player side, openly admitting that they really don't know what they're doing. I mean, Peter Malnati, God bless him, he's a great quote, but he openly admits he really doesn't know Liv's product. He really doesn't know anything about finance or equity investments, any of those types of things. No idea. And I promise you, Patrick Cantlay doesn't know jack squat either. He might think he's smart, but no, he's not. Not to that. I mean, there's a reason Yasser Al-Rumayyan is the governor of the Public Investment Fund. He has professional experience in running something this massive. And he is got complete leverage over the situation. You can either agree to most of my terms, and I'll wiggle on some things, or I can just keep spending my money. The only limiting factor, again, for Al-Rumayyan is the NEOM project, this Vision 2030 stuff that is just costing them hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions. And they can borrow and leverage and all that stuff. But that's really his only limiting factor, probably, in any time in the near future. PGA Tour side, there's no cohesion. And unless you can get rid of Cantlay and maybe even Spieth. And Spieth's the interesting irony here, because Spieth took McIlroy's place. So you introduced him to this situation. You strike the deal with the Strategic Sports Group for all that money. Spieth comes out and says, hey, maybe we don't even need the Saudi thing now. Maybe we just do this. Or we can even get another investor that's not the Saudis, and we'll have all that investment. And we don't need their money. Which, to a point, maybe he's right. But financially speaking, that can be true in terms of operations of the tour and things like that. But in terms of an attempt to reunify men's professional golf, that's not true. Because the Saudis are happy to continue spending their money at a massive loss until they feel like they've won. Because this is an internalized personal battle at this point. At least that's how I understand it. And if that's the case, how long are you willing to wait out Al-Rumayyan? I don't know. I don't know how long he's willing to wait. Because no one watches Liv. That's still true. No one watches Liv, right? At least in this country where sports rights are the only country where you have massive sports rights. Maybe the UK. Otherwise, really, no. Culturally, not that way. It's just not like that. I mean, outside chance Australia, but I mean, those are stratospheric differences. So you need to be able to make money in this country. If you can't, then you don't make a ton of money. You just don't. And no one watches this product on the CW. I'm sure that there are some people who watch it online. I have no qualms, questions about that. I'm sure there is an audience, probably most of it international, that's online. And that's fine. But they're not making Liv money. Okay? So if you're Al-Rumayyan, you have leverage because you have the money. Whatever leverage the PGA Tour has is because they have history on their side. They have audience size on their side, but that's problematic this year, right? I mean, audiences are down 15, 20% across the board. And you have some up days, some down days, but nets out down. And you've been fortunate the last couple of weeks to have Rory McIlroy playing great golf to get some people perhaps interested, because he's probably the only true needle mover right now on the PGA Tour. Scottie Scheffler's awesome, and people are really starting to take to him, I think. But even he doesn't move the needle quite in the same way as McIlroy does. Just more familiar with McIlroy. But still, you get to this point where whatever leverage you think your side of choice has, or either side has if you don't have a choice, they don't have. Right? The money piece for the Saudis can go away like that. MBS can change his mind tomorrow. He can. He's the guy who controls the spigot there. So, yeah, you're negotiating with one guy on that other side of the table for the Saudis, but there's a guy above him who can just go, you need to back off and we're done here. Shut this thing down. Shut this money loser down. Okay? That can happen. On the PGA Tour side, your audience has cratered because people are just mad. They don't like what's happened. So you've turned off hardcore golf fans. Golf's audience is aging. You're trying to create a superstar in a time where you're getting there, right? You're maybe finding a generational talent or your next generational talent. But still, he's not going to draw in the same way Tiger Woods did. And this is probably the third attempt in PGA Tour history to move on from Tiger. 2014, 15. Yes, then he came back and he was great, and then you had to try to move on. This is probably the second time you're trying to move on from him, in truth. And it's a struggle, right? I mean, ratings were difficult when it was Jordan Spieth and Dustin Johnson, and Tiger wasn't playing because of the back problems. And then he came back, was great. Ratings were up. Ratings went up because of COVID, first sport to come back, first significant sport to come back. Then all this stuff happens, everything craters, it's bad. Okay? So that leverage is gone. No one has good leverage here. And they're all just sitting there on the PGA Tour side going, well, maybe we don't need to do this deal. And yes, financially that's true. And I'm not even really sure that people miss Jon Rahm or Dustin Johnson. Phil, to a degree, I think they miss, but he's 52, 53 years old. So what are you really missing there? I mean, he hasn't been relevant competitively in 3 years. Since winning the PGA, it just hasn't been this, that was an incredible accomplishment. But otherwise, and that came almost out of nowhere. So that was the one shining moment to finish off his career, and that's it. People are mad at Phil because he started this whole thing, or at least they perceive him to. I mean, he's one of the big people who did. Maybe people miss Brooks to a degree, but he's not even people don't watch golf to watch Brooks Koepka. I think they respect him. I don't think they beloved him. So there's that. So nobody's winning. Everyone's losing. And the PGA Tour side has to decide how long they're willing to keep losing. And what catalyst, other than an agreement with the Saudis, could maybe change that. And really those things are playing outcomes. The only things that can do that are McIlroy wins 2 of the next 3 majors, or Scheffler wins the Grand Slam, or has 2 of the 3 majors in a row going for the career Grand Slam of the Open. Those kinds of things are what bring people back. The great play inside the ropes. And taking away from that with all the daily drama and back and forth and Phil lobbing stuff and Anthony Kim lobbing stuff, that doesn't help the LIV. No, and the LIV guys look like a bunch of whiners most of the time. And the PGA Tour guys look like they don't know anything about business. And everyone loses. So, not great, right? There's too many people involved, and none of them are aligned, and that's going to create a problem in the end. How that problem gets resolved and what that looks like, that's what we're fighting for. That's what this fight is about. So there's all that. Couple quick things before we go. Scotty Scheffler is in Louisville. He announced on his social Instagram that he and Meredith have had a baby son. I didn't hear the name. I know he talked to Todd Lewis yesterday, but it didn't mention name or anything in the post. Just, hey, we love you so much, and that's awesome. Hey, good for him. Keep it private as long as you want to keep it private. It's up to you how you want to reveal this stuff. But he is in Kentucky. Now he no longer can say, oh, well, I might get that call and I have to bail out anymore. That's gone. We have no idea where his game is, right? We'll find that out pretty quickly, of course. And it could be good. It could be bad. I'm sure there's going to be some rust. I'm sure he picked up some clubs. But what does that rust look like? We'll find that out. I think the ballpark helps him out. The rough isn't crazy deep unless you're way offline. Obviously, hitting the crap out of the ball is going to help on a bigger ballpark like this. And he just is such a good ball striker that on a foreign course, a place you don't play every year, I think he is at an advantage because these guys, many of them have never seen Valhalla, and they're not going to know how to play it in 2 or 3 days. They're just going to figure it out as they go. And Scheffler's ball striking is good enough that if Ted Scott does the recon the right way, and he was there in 2014, and I'm sure that there have been changes, but if they do the recon right, then it's just point and shoot for Scheffler, and then hopefully the putts go in. These greens are tricky, they're really tough, but the last 2 times they've had this event at Valhalla, the world number 1 has won. I don't think that's entirely a coincidence. Also, kudos to Nelly Corda. She didn't get the job done in winning 6 in a row. She was in position through 2 rounds and then just could not make a 3rd round move that was equivalent to what Madeline Sagstrom and Rose Zhang did. Rose Zhang was incredible to the finish of the Cognizant Founders Cup. 4 birdies in the last 5 holes to catch and pass Sagstrom to win by a couple. She's now a 2-time LPGA Tour winner. She's done that in the space of a year as a professional. This is her basically 1-year anniversary this week, defending the title at Liberty National for the Mizuho Americas Open. She's in a good place. I mean, you win twice in a year. You're still doing studies at Stanford, and she's kind of getting things in order to become a full-time professional. And when that starts, I think we got something, man. I think we got something. Nelly's been fantastic, and she's not going to play great forever. You just can't win forever like that. That doesn't happen. There's a reason that win streak has not manifested itself in 75 years of the LPGA's existence. It's extremely hard to do. But if you got Corda playing well enough, I mean, she was still in the hunt to win the B flight, which Gabby Ruffles won. But you've got a tournament this week. You've got, I believe, a week off, and then you've got the Women's Open at Lancaster Country Club in Pennsylvania. It's a great course for both of those players, for Nelly and for Rose. If you got that battle, wouldn't you be thrilled, right? Throw in a Lydia Ko maybe, because she's 1 win away from the LPGA Hall of Fame. Any win, anywhere, anytime, she's in the LPGA Hall of Fame. Probably the toughest Hall of Fame to get in sports. And you got her. Maybe Jin Young Ko starting to kind of figure it out again, but for the first time in a long time, the LPGA's top 2 most recognizable players, probably Americans. People know Rose Zhang's name, and people definitely know Nelly Corda's name. That could be a huge opportunity for the LPGA. So I hope it kind of works out pretty well the next couple weeks for him. Again, can't control those things. You never know what's going to happen, but hopefully when Lilia Vu gets healthy again, is able to play, she throws her name back in the ring too, and can start playing well, also building off of a 2 major season. She's had a rough go of it with her back, I believe. So we'll see what happens this week, but some positive momentum at least on that end. Great week this week. If you are interested in golf betting, check out my podcast, The Press. I'm going to do it right after this. Do a daily show leading into the PGA Championship. We'll also talk about the Mizuho Americas Open in a show. But if you're interested in that, the 4 weeks a year of men's majors or the 9 weeks a year between the men's and women's majors, then we've got plenty to cover you for this week. If not, hey, just skip it. Listen to this show. We appreciate it. Back tomorrow with another show. If you have any questions for me, email me, ryan@thegolfnewsnet.com, Twitter, Threads, X, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Ryan Ballengee, Facebook and YouTube at Ryan Ballengee Golf, and Golf Newsnet is on every single one of those services at the handle Golf Newsnet. Thanks so much for listening. We will talk to you next time on 2 Off the First.